All right, it should be everywhere it needs to be right now. Isn't that the old Visa thing? Everywhere you want to be.
Yeah.
The one that I quote all the time.
I don't think they've dropped that. I think they still use that.
The one that I still quote all the time is Mazda. It just feels right. That's the one I like.
Oh boy. Oh, there it is.
Please share.
Hey now.
Feels good. Are you? Do you still get these the updates from like the radio sites and stuff? We're now in week 3 of the bloodletting at iHeartRadio. They just keep. It's like the weird. How are you finding people to fire? Who is left at this point? Honestly, it's so funny. It's like
the only thing I get is I get the email, the Del Colliano that has like 3 words. Like, it's so exciting. I have to subscribe. No, I don't. No, I don't. No, I don't. Because he's the one that every 2 days it's the latest firings at Entercom are not what you think. Oh, I got to subscribe. Oh, no,
it means the company.
No, I don't.
What does it mean? The company's doing great? Is that what it means?
No, I just don't need to. Not that big of a deal. All right, ready?
I am.
Okay. We've got a Brad and Britt cast underway here in the 1:30 hour on Tuesday as we are live here in Facebookville and in YouTube City, which is just about an hour outside of Reno. How you doing? Howdy.
Reno, the biggest little city in the world, right?
It's a great place. Great place. Now, I have to tell you something. I may have to leave early because I have an important Zoom call with my attorney, Rudy Giuliani, because I have hired him to fly out to Los Angeles and investigate voting irregularities and Dancing with the Stars. Okay. I'm demanding
the stars.
It appears to me there were some real irregularities on the Monday night show, and every legal vote needs to be counted. And I want, if lawsuits have to be filed, I will happily fund them. With that in mind, did you see?
Yeah,
is the best story ever the fact that tomorrow, Wednesday, is the deadline. In Wisconsin, if Trump really wants a recount, which he really doesn't, but he pretends that he does because this is all one big scam, this whole thing, this is all big front, but he has to pay for it himself and it will cost him $8 million. What are the chances that Donald Trump would ever pay $8 million for anything ever?
It's not going to happen.
Right. Of course.
And he's the only guy who's got to represent him on these stupid lawsuits now is Rudolph Giuliani. He's the only guy, right? Nobody else is willing to go and make these arguments for him anymore.
Well, it's like a 4 or 5 person team. Giuliani's one of them, and some other second raters.
Can you imagine an actual attorney who would somehow allow Rudolph Giuliani to be the lead on any case? Would you ever want that person to represent you in anything? Can you imagine?
Well, you see, when Dancing with the Stars pays me a lot of money to shut me up, you're not going to like it. But I read a piece this morning that makes the case that all of this noise, all of this fuss, all of this, I was robbed of the election, we're going to keep filing lawsuits, we've got the evidence, is clearly not what it appears to be. Because with Trump, sometimes he's the most obvious liar in the world, and then other times he is looking past what's going to happen on January 20th. And all it's about is setting himself up to continue to rip off his supporters, the grift. He will keep doing rallies. He wants to keep his name in front of the public. He wants to be the kingmaker of the Republican Party forever. He wants veto power over every office holder that he has right now. So this thought by any of us that, boy, once he's out of office, they will be freed from having to worry about him judging them and sending out a mean tweet and ruining their career. Apparently that's not only not going to happen, but that is his plan. He wants to be the mafia don forever over the Republican Party. And clearly there's only one way to solve that problem. And I can't talk about that, or the FBI would probably be at my door.
We don't want anybody to investigate.
And we wouldn't want that to happen. But that would solve a lot of things, wouldn't it?
Google Sammy the Bull Gravano.
Yeah.
I think that's right. But there's also an element of I have no plan whatsoever, and I'm just acting out petulantly. I mean, I think the plan right now is to take over the One American News Network and make it into the Trump News Network, to license his name and make money off of that, and maybe have a show for Don Jr. or Eric. I don't. Other than that, I think the plan is to just take a shit in the corner.
Well,
isn't that what the plan is right now?
Well, you can run the full spectrum from there is a plan. As I was talking about, he really does think about, well, this is how I remain relevant, because relevancy for Trump is having his name mentioned, right?
Yeah.
Always being the top story. He wants to be the president of the 21st century Confederacy in exile, and he's got millions of people who believe every word he says. Who, when you told me about this story yesterday, I heard more about it later, about the people who are dying of coronavirus, and in their final breath, they utter the word hoax. I don't believe it's real. And
it was a South Dakota ER nurse who actually saw them with her own eyes, denying it.
I would just guess that she's not the only one.
No, but
not the only place.
That's specifically where this story comes from, which is amazing to me.
But if there is that level of disconnect with reality, aside from the difficulties the country is going to have with getting its hands around containing this pandemic in the short term over the next few months until we can get to that bridge. Remember the good old days? I mean, I'm old enough to remember 3 weeks ago, before we heard about any 90+% effective vaccines, where we were just trying to figure out, how do we get past this dark winter where cases are going through the roof? How can we possibly get past that? And then hopefully there will be now there is a vaccine, and we're going to have this gigantic, I don't know if you want to call it re-education program, because you can't do that. You have to have an education. No, you can't do that. To get people to understand that public health is not a political issue, but in America, it is a political issue.
Absolutely, it is.
And I was watching the Fauci this morning. The Fauci did about a half hour. All those clips you see of him very often in places where you don't recognize, where he's doing these seminars and these online chats. And I watched one this morning. It was with Andrew Ross Sorkin and the New York Times CNBC guy. And the Fauci, when he's not on TV, when he's in a little bit of a smaller space,
right?
He's even more media savvy than you think he is, because he's thinking the way we think that politicians need to think these days, because he stops himself several times just in this half hour saying, well, I better not say that, or it'll be a soundbite that will come back. And he says it out loud. He says, because if you ask him a provocative question, for instance, here would be a sample question. Why is Donald Trump such a fuckface who's destroying the country and all attempts at public health and wearing a mask?
That's a fairly provocative question.
All right, but so Fauci will answer those questions. Say, well, I don't think this should be a political issue, and I don't want to say anything that would be a soundbite that would be used not just against me, but against the good of the American people. So you know what his answer is. He doesn't give it, and he lets you know that he does understand pretty damn well how the world works. So you very seldom see out of context clips of him saying things that just don't make any sense. Although the mother of all of them is when back in, what was it, February, when the issue of masks was first coming up, and he said that it wasn't necessary to wear them at the time. They've been trying to beat him over the head with that one ever since then, as if he's actually the no mask guy.
Yeah,
right?
that's him. That's the guy.
Yeah, that's him. So, and
you heard what Scott Atlas now is saying. This is what he's appealing to. He said that no one should be denied a last Thanksgiving. No one should be denied a last Thanksgiving. I can speak to this personally. It looks like I'm not going to be joining at least my father's side of the family for Thanksgiving. And my grandmother, who is 95 years old, has been diagnosed this year with breast cancer. Now, I think they've got it to where it's not metastasizing, but she would be immunocompromised just based on her age, but also being treated for the cancer.
Wow.
This may be the last thing. I don't know. This might be the last Thanksgiving, and I'm going to miss it. If you have to make up for decades of shitty behavior with one day at Thanksgiving for your loved one, you suck. I'm okay with the idea. I'd love to see my grandmother again, but if I don't, I'm okay with the way we left things and the last time that I saw her, and I think she would understand. So if that is your goal in life is, if I could just have the one Thanksgiving and oh my God, the liberals are ruining it for me, then you suck. You're terrible. You're going to always remember this Thanksgiving, possibly if you go through with it, as the one where you infected 3 members of your family and they died. Is it really that important to you so that we can have the cranberry sauce smeared on our faces? I don't think so. I don't think so. But I'm looking for the selfies.
You selfish son of a bitch, you.
I know. It's crazy.
You bastard. Why do you hate your grandmother so much? Why do you hate her?
I've been a piece of shit to my family for like 30 years, but I can make it up in one day.
If I may speak on behalf of the Trump administration, she's 95. What the fuck? Who cares?
I'm gonna say
right?
It's true. I mean,
isn't that really the
let Granny go? We're much more worried about the 28-year-old, and we're gonna help them out because Trump's got some really good stuff out there for working families. If they would just let him have this election and not steal it from him, he can help them out so much right now.
Yeah. By the way, I have, and I like every once in a while I hit the jackpot on one of these really insane predictions.
Yeah.
Here's an insane prediction on how they're going to try to, they're going to keep going after Fauci forever, right? And wait till he goes and works for the enemy. It was bad enough that he was working as the enemy within the Trump administration, right? But soon he's going to be changing uniforms.
That's right.
Okay, he's going to be putting on the gray was the North, right? The blue was the South, right?
That's how. When I was the other way, the blue was the North, the gray was the South. That's how that worked.
I'm a Civil War genius.
You didn't watch the blue-gray game every
I
Christmas
did, but
Day?
I still can't remember which is which.
One of the dumber
anyway,
things.
Here, Fauci, and he talks about this. You've probably heard it in the last few days. They always ask him, well, "What are you doing for Thanksgiving?" And he's saying, "My adult children, who I want to see very, very badly, and my grandchildren, that we're just going to." Say for this year, we're not going to do anything in person. I'm just going to be there with my lovely wife, and we're going to have a meal, and we'll do a big Zoom call and the rest. I predict that someone will Photoshop Fauci's head onto a giant group of people around a Thanksgiving table and say, "Fauci, hypocrite, lied about his Thanksgiving meal." What are the chances?
That's a good one.
Chance of that?
You should answer that back is that famous Norman Rockwell piece of the dinner table with the turkey. They should put his face on that, and the liberals go, "Look at Dr. Fauci! Oh my God, there he is, flouting his own advice."
Excuse me, I'm ascribing some level of intelligence that they might recognize that as fake.
I can't look at this family.
But on the other hand,
they're all white too. Look how white those people are.
Yeah.
Why aren't the liberals bitching about how white his family is? I mean, there's all kind of stupidity that's going to be happening to us in the next 9 days. The gathering
9 years.
Well, I'm trying to get past Thanksgiving, right now, because you're gonna see a million different selfies of people. Hey, fuck the libs! Look at us frying this turkey, and they're gonna be like taking a selfie with 30 people around each other, breathing on each other, coughing on each other, licking each other's spoons, and feeding each other pie. I mean, that's gonna be how they own the libs, and then try to kill each other the next few days, right?
Yeah,
and then deny that they have it in South Dakota as they're dying and taking their last breath. No, it was Democrat hoax, and you're dead.
I mean, in all seriousness, the numbers are so stark.
Oh, you can't even
right
deal with it.
We're about to cross 250,000 deaths. Okay.
Shit, in North Carolina, it's like 2,500 a day just in our state, Brad.
New cases, yeah.
Yes, every day 2,500, which it turns out to be that averages out to be 25 a county, but obviously some of these rural counties don't have 25. Right. So there's places like Mecklenburg and Wake and Guilford and Durham that are having like way more than that.
We get 100 or 200 a day here. Yeah,
you can't even wrap your head around these numbers. You can't. And we sort of kind of had this thing going in the right direction, but then idiots started being stupid.
Yeah, I was trying to equate it with something that made some sense. And somebody, and this was not mine, I'll give you mine in a minute. Somebody reminded us that after 9/11, when about 3,000 people were killed at the World Trade Center,
right?
We were and are and continue to spend trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars to avenge that moment and make it safe to fly and all these just over 3,000 deaths. Now we have 3,000 deaths every 2 days. We may have 3,000 deaths a day continuously, and we're not spending any money comparatively speaking to that. I thought that was a good comparison. My comparison is this, and I looked this up to make sure I had this right. The worst week of the Vietnam War was the week of the Tet Offensive in 1968. And that week, 545 Americans died in combat. 545 during an entire week. We haven't had a day where only 545 Americans died from the coronavirus, and who knows how long.
Oh my God!
Right? We've been well over that.
I would beg for that. Absolutely.
Right. And, this is not to denigrate war deaths at all. But the idea that we have a president who, to try to bring this home, who actually used the phrase, I'm a war president, many months ago.
Yeah.
Right. When he was trying to do his PR bullshit, when he was doing the press conferences every afternoon, which weren't press conferences. They were rallies.
They were.
But he tried to position himself, at least in the minds of his supporters, and apparently they bought it, that he was the equivalent of a war president. He was FDR. He was Lincoln. He was all those things. Well, if that's true, you are the worst war president we've ever had. More people, more Americans are dying on your watch than in any war we can name. This at this rate, it wouldn't take long if Trump was at the beginning of a term and we were starting to lose people at this rate for a couple of years, it would be higher than the Civil War dead, right? In the Civil War, like 600,000 or so people.
Yeah.
So we could get there pretty fast if things don't come together here, and if the vaccine isn't distributed in a way that really starts to make a difference. And we absolutely know that we are at best 3 to 4 months from having any initial impact, which would be when you get the healthcare workers and the 911 operators and the first responders and all those folks all vaccinated.
Right.
That will be great. But that's just a start, because then you have the other 300 million of us.
And the delays in the transition and the failure to concede and all the other stuff has delayed all of that.
Right. And
I mean, there's no question about this.
Yeah. Right. This was the question that Fauci punted on today. I'm glad you brought this up, where he said, I don't want to be political about this, or I'll be a soundbite. He was asked directly, is the lack of cooperation by the Trump administration in the transition hindering you terribly in treating the coronavirus? And his answer was, well, I don't want to give you a political answer because it would be a soundbite. And then he went on to say, I've been through five presidential transitions, five of them. And they're all very, very difficult, but we do them, and they've been done with goodwill. And it's like when you're running a relay race at the Olympics and you want to hand off the baton while that other runner is already running, right? Almost full speed. You want to hand it to him. You don't have it where the other runner is just standing there like a statue and you hand it to them.
Or sits on the ground and digs a hole and refuses to come out, which is exactly what's happening right now.
So
Jesus Christ.
I thought that was a good analogy from the Fauci. Follow the Fauci.
He did. He was saying that we need a uniform approach to this and not have bric-a-brac. Missouri does this, Arkansas says do this, Massachusetts says, Michigan has the. We need a national approach, and we need some leadership, and it's exactly the only leadership we have now. Is Donald Trump is a great leader when it comes to whining and bitching. I don't know if we've had a better leader at whining and bitching than Donald John Trump.
Now, why isn't he getting credit for that? Why doesn't he get credit for that?
The media doesn't want to give Donald Trump for being the greatest bitcher in the history of the office. And nobody wants to, and I thought Fauci was right. And of course, we're going to hear about states' rights. What about states' rights? You're trampling on states' rights and our autonomy and all this other, stop it. People are dying, and they're getting money from the federal government right now to try to fight this thing. So fuck your states' rights. I'm sorry about this shit, but I'm sorry. This is not even discussable among reasonable people.
It's not a states' rights thing. It's not even close.
It's so stupid. And states' rights was always an excuse for people to be racist anyway. That's how that was hijacked anyway. So just stop. That's all so stupid. But you're going to continue to have a lot of this.
By the way, if states' rights is so important, why was a U.S. Senator from South Carolina calling the Secretary of State of Georgia and telling him to throw out ballots? What is that a states' rights thing? Does that not count for us to be able to criticize? Because that was one Southern Confederate state senator calling another Secretary of State from a Confederate state.
When your state borders the state, then you have certain privileges. I don't believe you've read that. How that works? I don't believe it's like the unwritten rules of baseball. You read that,
right? So like the Masters, which is played in Augusta, Georgia, which is very close to South Carolina.
Right.
The people of South Carolina do have squatters' rights.
That's correct.
At the Augusta National Golf Club. Is that right?
That's exactly right, Brad. I don't understand how you don't get this.
So they get the local discount. Right.
So it was Lindsey Graham who was urging this Raffensperger guy, who's the Secretary of State in Georgia and who's been a Republican in his entire life and is having to fight off crazy Republicans, including the two people that are running for Senate as Republicans in the state of Georgia, asking him to resign. And Lindsey Graham said that we need to find a way to somehow get rid of exclude absentee ballots. And Raffensperger's going, I can't do that. That would be illegal. And now it seems to me that Lindsey Graham has done something that could be construed as illegal. I don't know. He says that's not how the conversation went, Brad. Lindsey Graham saying he's very surprised that Raffensperger is putting it that way.
Okay, can I translate this for you? Lindsey Graham has hung around Donald Trump too long because Trump is the master of issuing the order without issuing the order. Okay. You know what to do. Have that guy killed under the bridge at midnight. Now, I'm not telling you to do that, and I didn't say you should do that, but if that were to happen to him, it would be a shame. And Lindsey Graham clearly had a conversation with the Secretary of State of Georgia. His first name is Brad. I don't care what his last name is because he's a Brad.
That's all that matters. Yeah, it's not. It's all about me. Sure.
But at this point, who are you going to believe? The Secretary of State of Georgia or Lindsey Graham? The
Secretary of State of Georgia, who's been criticized by fellow Republicans. And I have to say, you got to give this guy a little bit of integrity because he's not going to fold. There's a lot of people in his position and we go, I'll go along with the morons. I'll recount everything and I'll exclude these votes and I'll make sure that the black people are screwed over, and he ain't doing it.
No, he ran a couple of years ago on voter integrity. And unfortunately, for most Republicans, voter integrity is voter suppression.
That's exactly right.
Sadly, this guy actually meant it.
Yeah.
Okay. And what he meant was he wanted to revamp Georgia's system. I think they used to have the problem with there were no paper trails of votes that were taken. So recounts would have been very, very difficult back then. It'd be easier to change or fix an election. He fixed that.
Yeah,
well, that's not good if you're trying to screw up an election. And again, we truthfully, but we'll break our own rule. We really shouldn't be talking about this because, number one, if someone could come in tomorrow and have Donald Trump win that state, 4 million to nothing, it wouldn't change the outcome of the election, and Joe Biden will be the president. No. It just doesn't matter. I mean, we've been through this. You can add Georgia and Arizona and Wisconsin all together, and Trump still loses. He'd have to get Pennsylvania. He ain't getting Pennsylvania. So it's really not a discussion. And this goes back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago. Is this just part of Donald Trump wanting to stay in the conversation? Because, as you know, 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 12 years ago, just go back by multiples of 4 your entire life. At this point, after a presidential election, 2 weeks, it's been 2 weeks, we would normally only be talking about the next president, what that next president's agenda was going to be, and who that president was going to appoint to important positions. But Donald Trump can't even stand that. He cannot even allow for that to happen because that takes the spotlight off of him. So what does he do? He threatens nuclear war with Iran. Can we drop a nuke on them on their side? Can we do something? Can we withdraw all the troops from Afghanistan right before I leave so there can be a big mess there that'll be Joe Biden's fault when he has to send 30,000 troops back after I.
This seems to be the only thing that pisses off Mitch McConnell is him withdrawing. That's the only thing that's gotten his attention. Isn't that great? Like he can Donald
everything else was cool. Everything else was fine till this.
He can rape people on the White House lawn, but if you withdraw one troop from over in Afghanistan, hang on a second, this is pissing me off, and that should get Lindsey Graham's attention too, right? He's Mr. Let's go to war all the time too, right?
Well, it's not that. It's just that in this case, Mitch McConnell is right. He is right. But the idea that he's right about this has absolutely nothing to do with his lifetime of behavior as a power crazy partisan pig who has destroyed the United States Senate and has destroyed the federal judiciary for decades to come. Now, we know he's going to live to be 146 and stay in that job forever. We understand that. God forbid any of these people should ever voluntarily step down from what they're doing. It just must be the greatest thing in the world. It must be the greatest job ever. Who would ever want to leave at age 88, whatever the fuck he is?
Why would you do that?
Right.
This was the story in the New York Times. President Trump asked senior advisors in an Oval Office meeting on Thursday whether he had options to take actions against Iran's main nuclear site in the coming weeks. The meeting occurred a day after international inspectors reported a significant increase in the country's stockpile of nuclear material. 4 current and former U.S. officials said on Monday. The range of senior advisors dissuaded the president from moving ahead with a military strike. Here's the gang of 4, Brad. Mike Pence, Mike Pompeo, who's a giant kiss ass, Chris Miller, who's the acting defense secretary, taking over after Esper was fired, and General Mark A. Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So that's really the 4 people who are standing between us and possibly nuking Iran.
Well, that's how bad of an idea it was. That 3 got Milley's not a suck up, but the other 3 are.
Big time.
These 3 suck ups weren't willing to suck up to Trump at this hour. Apparently, they had him down 4 points, 1 on each arm, and then and then they brought in Kayleigh McEnany to waffle belly him with a tennis racket and a hairbrush on his stomach. Hey,
Camp
waffle
memories.
deli.
A lot of camp memories coming spilling out of you right now. Is that what's happening?
That would be a super wedgie.
Super wedgie.
That's when you hang them by a doornail about 10 feet up. And
First of all, I would like to thank you for the delightful imagery of Donald Trump getting a waffle belly. That's fantastic. But and we're supposed to, I don't know what we're supposed to be by that story. We're supposed to be relieved. Oh, good. The adults are in charge. They're not going to let him do it. Well, they're not going to let him do it like on Thursday. It's not like he's going to just forget it. I know his attention span is like, ooh, squirrel. But still, he's going to circle back around to this because he's going to want to nuke somebody before he leaves town, isn't he?
I think, I hate to even have to talk this way, but even though he has the nuclear codes and the rest, it's not like it's a red button under his desk. That's the button that he uses to order a new Diet Coke, right?
That's the one, yes.
Okay. And they may have told him that that's the nuclear button, but every time he pushes it, somebody walks in with a Diet Coke. He hasn't put the two things together yet.
He's hooked up to nothing. That's great.
Right. But, you know, he can't unilaterally start a nuclear war. It doesn't quite work that way. It doesn't. It does not work that way.
Okay, but short of a nuclear war, short of not launching a warhead, he could do a lot of fucking damage between now and January the 20th.
Right,
because he can do a lot of stuff, and there may not be 4 human beings to stop him at that point. There may be people going, "Go, Donald, go."
I'm not saying that he can't do lots of terrible things, and he is doing terrible things. I mean, didn't he? Just a couple of days ago, signed some stupid executive order saying, you know, it's time to drill the shit out of the
he was basically
Alaska
saying,
coastline or something. It's just crazy.
Exxon Mobil, come on, pick out your spot. That's basically what was happening the other day. Sure, that's what he wants to do, which, as you pointed out, would be rolled back on January the 20th at 12:01. But still, he's going to try to do incredible damage between now and then. He's hoping
Biden will forget about that one.
Good luck, because Joe Biden does have people working for him. Even if Joe Biden does have dementia, which I know is completely true, he does have people around him who would remember and to say, hey, we're not going to exactly let you go up there and just plunder the Arctic wildlife that you've wanted to for all of these years. So no, that's not going to happen. But yeah, we would get these stories early in the administration, right? Boy, thank God for General Kelly. He's really, you guys got to keep him as chief of staff because he's really keeping Donald Trump from doing some really bad shit. Remember these stories would come up. No, you don't understand that people like Reince Priebus, they're really keeping him in check. Remember these stories?
Everybody thought that they could fulfill that role, and no one could. And what we're really worried about, what we've got a little bit more than 60 days to go, is we are truly in the Dick Nixon, Woodward and Bernstein final days episode of this play, as far as the White House goes, where, you know, Nixon was talking to the portraits, drinking heavily, praying with Henry Kissinger.
Yeah, that was great.
Crying and doing all those kinds of things. But I don't think there was ever a moment, I don't think we read about that they thought that he was going to declare nuclear war to divert people's attention from the Watergate tapes. I don't think that was going to happen. I mean, this is way worse. This is way worse than Nixon.
Yeah,
it's not even close. It's really, really not even close.
One of my favorite stories is one that Pamela Brown from CNN reported. She said they had a contentious meeting where Rudolph Giuliani was screaming at the president's legal team, and the legal team was saying, look, we can't go forward with these lawsuits because they have no merit to them, and the judges are telling us we don't have any merit, we're going to scale back. And Giuliani was screaming at them, calling them liars. And I think it was the deputy campaign secretary for Trump who called him a fucking idiot and told him to shut up. They had quite a contentious little conference call at the White House. And now Giuliani, of course, has appointed himself lawyer for life, and he's going to continue to just go down with the ship on this stuff. There was Donald Trump is tweeting about this today. Apparently there was some sort of election in Arizona and Clark County. They just threw out an election that represents 1/6 of the total votes in the state, about 153,000 votes. And Donald Trump is piggybacking on that, saying,
Clark County's in Nevada, not Arizona.
I'm sorry. Yes, in Nevada. That's where, of course, Las Vegas is. Big victory moments ago in the state of Nevada, the all-Democrat county commissioner race on same ballot as president, Brad.
Yeah.
On the same ballot as president.
Uh-huh.
just threw out because of large-scale voter discrepancy. Clark County officials do not have confidence in their election security. Major impact. You know, Meryl Streep has won several Oscars, and I have the same DNA as her. So really, it's like I won the Oscar, Brad. Because they had this one election thrown out, that means that Donald Trump's election in Nevada is completely fraudulent, and that's a victory for Trump. That is what that is. That is what he's claiming. And that means they're 1-21 now, I believe, in court, even if you claim this is a victory, which I think is complete bullshit. But fine, I believe they're 1-21 now in any kind of a challenge whatsoever in court, Brad. And they've been laughed out of court on many occasions.
Yeah, let's look at the here's the headline. Trump and allies pitch yet another woeful voter fraud theory in Nevada. Yeah, so this must be a biggie. Right.
It's huge.
Yeah.
He's linking to something called justthenews.com, and he tweets, the rate of rejected mail-in ballots is 30 times lower in Pennsylvania this year than it was in 2016. This is why they keep our poll watchers and observers out of these scared vote counting rooms, ! They continue to peddle these stupid theories about this company known as Dominion. They continue to talk about in Georgia how they won't allow the signature matching shit to go. And they're just screaming and throwing poop at the walls and smearing feces all over the house. That's all they can do.
Like a monkey at the zoo.
Essentially, that's all he's doing is just throwing shit. And he can't come up with anything that anybody's going to believe except that the 30 people who still, buy his shit. And they don't think the election is over. It's over. It's done. I'm sorry. The military on January the 20th at noon is not going to hand over the nuclear codes to Biden or to Trump. They're not going to do that. That's another thing that his followers believe is going to happen. The military is behind Trump. They're not going to allow Biden to take office and get the nuclear codes because they support Donald. No, the military does not support Donald Trump because he doesn't support them. He's called them losers.
Britt, the military doesn't support any politician.
That's correct.
They support and take an oath to the Constitution of the United States.
Right.
They do not take an oath to whoever happens to be in the Oval Office at the time. At issue in Nevada is a race for the Clark County Commission where, yes, 153,000 ballots were cast. There are discrepancies with, do you know how many? Did you see? 139.
Well, that swings the state to Donald Trump. That's a huge victory for the president.
So they're casting the story as if 153,000 votes are being thrown out.
No.
Okay. 139 out of 153,000, that's less than 0.1% of the vote. And that's exactly the numbers that we're usually talking about. So if you extrapolate 139 out of 153,000 votes. And what was the margin in Pennsylvania? About 60,000 votes?
Yeah, I think that, yeah, something like that.
So you'd probably have about 80 votes that would be in. So again, we should not even be giving oxygen or talking about this because it is crazy. It is like you coming on this Brad and Britt and saying that you finally got the call you were hoping for, and you are the starting quarterback for the Raiders this Sunday. You finally got the call. And when I say you're nuts, you say, no, you got it. You finally got it. You've been waiting.
Derek Carr did not throw for a single touchdown on Sunday, so that means I'm going to be starting against the Kansas City Chiefs in Las Vegas. I got to get on a plane right now. We've got to practice.
Right. So they're not throwing out 153,000. It's not that. So again, it's a distortion on top of a deception, on top of bullshit, on top of a lie. And that story from CNN about the Scream Fest between Giuliani and these other people. Yeah. Wouldn't you like to have been? Don't you hope? This is what I hope, that, and I did this once. I probably a lot of people do this. You turn on the recording aspect of your iPhone or your Android, and while you're in a meeting with the boss, you're recording the conversation. They don't know about it.
Exactly.
Usually nothing happens. But wouldn't you like to have some audio tape of Trump in action? Because we know that figuratively the shredding machines have been running 24/7 since election day, right?
Exactly.
and not that anything is on paper. Trump never wrote a memo in his life. He never signed anything. He never sent email. There's none of the kind of paper record of his presidency that we're going to find in other presidencies. But whatever is, they're probably illegally trying to get rid of it or delete it from servers or now there's probably a lot of stuff on Hunter Biden's laptop that we need to preserve, that we know. But other than that, he's trying to destroy everything. So we need some firsthand surreptitious recording of some of these moments, not unlike that recording that was unveiled at the impeachment hearings of Trump yelling at the ambassador. Right? Weren't they sitting in a restaurant in Ukraine?
That's right.
And Trump was screaming on the phone, and everybody knew, if it wasn't even a recording, it was 4 or 5 witnesses saying there was no doubt that was Trump yelling.
You could hear him from tables away.
Right. But if we would have had a recording, I guess that's how I should have said it. If there would have been a recording,
I wish
that would have been even better. And by the way, he still wouldn't have been convicted, of course, but there was no amount of evidence that was going to ever convict Donald Trump.
The fake news New York Times reporting that Rudolph Giuliani, who has helped oversee a string of failed court challenges to President Trump's defeat in the election, asked the president's campaign to pay him $20,000 a day for his legal work. That's according to multiple people briefed on the matter. That request stirred opposition from some of Mr. Trump's aides and advisors who want that money to go to Eric and Donald Jr. because they're idiots. They appear to, I'm sorry, they appear to have ruled out paying that much. It's unclear how much Mr. Giuliani will ultimately be compensated. This would make him one of the highest paid attorneys in the country, Brad. One of the most highly compensated attorneys anywhere on the planet.
Well, that doesn't sound like that much.
$20,000 a day. That's what the New York Times is actually saying.
$100,000 a week, $5 million a year. That'd make him a high pay. But you know what? I thought that he was honored to work pro bono for this president. I thought, and again, this is just like with Trump. Weren't you under the impression that Giuliani is really, really rich because of all the bullshit that he has done in between the time that he was mayor of New York and all
previously? I would have thought
consultancies. Right. In other words, the impression has been given that Giuliani is doing this because somehow, some crazy way, he actually believes in what he's doing, as nuts as that is. So isn't it interesting that at this 11th hour plus the 59th minute, we find out that Giuliani wants money for his services.
Previously, I would have thought that, but now I know how much some of these allegedly rich people are broke as hell, including Donald Trump. Reached by phone, Rudolph Giuliani strenuously denied requesting that much. I never asked for $20,000, said Mr. Giuliani, saying the president volunteered to make sure he was paid after the case is concluded. The arrangement is we'll work it out at the end. By the way,
that's a good one.
What attorney hasn't agreed to that arrangement, Brad? I've never met an attorney who didn't go, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out at the end. He added that whoever had said the $20,000 a day request is a liar, a complete liar, Brad. There is little to no prospect of any of the remaining legal cases being overseen by Rudolph Giuliani, who, by the way, is the greatest attorney in the history of law, altering the outcome of any of the cases where Mr. Trump is still fighting in court, much less overturning President-elect Joseph Robinette Biden Jr.'s Electoral College and popular vote victory, Brad. So Rudy Giuliani thinks he's getting this. He says he's absolutely not. And once again, the fake news has tarred and feathered this great man who subject verb 9/11.
So our survey question is Rudy Giuliani worth $20,000 a day? Give us a call.
He's not worth 20 cents a day. Come on. And by the way, if he makes that kind of money, can he get his teeth fixed? If they could actually write him a check for that, could we get him to a good dentist or an orthodontist or somebody?
It's his bottom teeth that are all yellow.
Holy shit. Yeah. Do they need to be yanked out and we get fake ones? Can we get a cadaver ready for him or something? Could there be somebody help this man? And so I would be in favor of paying him 20 grand a day if he could do something about those dead man's teeth that he has rotting the inside of his mouth.
Isn't that the name of his book, Dead Man's Teeth?
Great hit by Janet Dean, right?
Yeah.
We're out.
That's enough.